All right, everyone, thank you for coming tonight. We have a quorum now, so I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes of January 28th and March 6th. Anyone have any questions? Eleanor, are you okay with those? Just in general, like, they're good, right? Anyone have any questions? If not, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Public comments for anything that's not on the agenda, and we're gonna have some, discussion from everyone that's here anyway, so we're all good, so, thank you. So, Mike, where are we at with the, plan update, transportation plan update?
Thank you. There's a copy of the presentation in the packet. This should be fairly quick. The only thing really to go over is prioritization and scoring of recommended projects. As you recall, from between now and April 25th is essentially the writing of the plan and the drafting of project descriptions and the such. We're also conducting a survey that wraps up right before the April 25th NPAC meeting. So right now we're just doing project descriptions and scoring, and I'm meeting with various committees. Met this afternoon with the Commission on Disability. I've already met with the airport, the Steamship Authority, ongoing dialogue with DPW and NRTA. But there are other stakeholders that still need to be reached out to and coordinated with. So that'll be ongoing until the end of April. Again, I mentioned at the last meeting that I would start project evaluations, and I showed you a very unreadable slide,
Wow.
which you can see
Sure.
on page 8.
Can't
That's
see it.
actually been flushed out into 3 sets of tables, and the first yellow table are projects that have been completed. You'll see on the far left on priority, it's noted that those projects are completed. But just for comparison, you can see how they scored with what we use for objective scoring criteria. That's a variety of condition factors, mobility, safety, and sustainability factors. Those all totaled up and averaged and used to help inform the prioritization of projects. Again, what also helps dictate prioritization is whether the project is funded or not, and funding available or not, and that goes into the second table. Just so you know, the greenish shaded projects are more bike pedestrian oriented. The blue shaded projects are ones that are somewhat roadway oriented, and the purpose is to blur that line between roadway and bike pedestrian facility. Again, like I mentioned last meeting, we have to exercise a complete streets policy. Every time money is spent on any type of transportation improvement, you have to accommodate all modes and abilities of users. So all these will include bike, pedestrian, transit, roadway, freight. Any type of user of the transportation network needs to be considered for each of these improvements. So we're trying to, on purpose, blur the line between like a roadway intersection and a bike path project. It should really be more than just those. So the first set of projects, 1 through 13, are listed there. On the far right-hand side, you'll see a funding status, and if it's a Y, it means yes, there's some level of funding, whether it be design funding
Yeah.
or design
Not
and
fun-
construction.
Completely.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the point is that there has been some funding design, so those have been moved up and sorted by scoring and then availability of funding. And you'll notice that the priority number 1 is actually part of article, I believe it's 16 at this town meeting, the in-town bike path, Orange Street phase of that. The next 3 projects are the 3 roundabout projects, the Four Corners, Fairgrounds Old South, and Bartlett and Surfside Road. Those, you may be very familiar with the status of those. I will point out, only because we just got recent notification, that project number 7 here, the Surfside School Crossing, if you don't really know what that is, it's basically a relocation of the crosswalk at the entrance driveway to the high school, moving that to between the 2 driveways and make that more accessible and improve sight lines. And because the select board had requested this when we went over the scope of the Four Corners intersection improvement, a widening of the Surfside Road bike path from essentially just north of First Way up to Vesper Lane, removing the Belgian block strip.
Yeah.
Essentially had the path look like Bartlett Road. And
So like 6 feet, like something.
so you'll gain a lot more width.
Yeah.
It should be 10 to 12 feet in width
Oh,
when that is widened out, but there will be a little bit of a granite curb reveal there. Again, just not all that different from the Bartlett Road path, but it will have the accessibility attributes of the ramps and the detectable warning panels and the safe crossing for the school. So we did get the point of that was we put in for a grant request from the state using Safe Routes to School funding. It's up to $1 million, design and construction. And we got notification that we got accepted for that grant. So we'll actually need to amend the tip to include that project. And again, funding up to $1 million for 2019. So we'll need to amend the existing tip, and that won't be on 2020, I don't believe.
So, Mike, can I
Yep.
just interrupt you for a second? On that
Sure.
sight line thing with that relocation of the crosswalk, that was part of the property that we got next to the new schools where you're gonna be able to see, they're gonna shave that back a little bit so you can see.
Well, there already has been some cutting of vegetation,
Okay.
right? But the idea is to move physically.
Trying to
move
think of
that
the number
crosswalk
of the house.
further
You know
around.
what I'm talking about. The town owns that house next to the school now. I think that's where the sightline issue was. That people were complaining about they couldn't walk there or something. Isn't that what this is about?
No, it's out
Or
by-
no?
out in the open more.
Okay. So we're moving the crosswalk to the middle of the schools. So there's one bigger one, right?
That's essentially the front door of the middle school.
Okay.
That's where the alignment will be.
Okay.
So we're, excuse me.
For the
Mr.
old
Chairman.
high school.
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Just a question, when you're moving into the middle there with the parking, the angle parking there, is there going to be a reduction of 2 spaces? Because then you'll be cutting through and then you'll be cutting through the middle school
Oh.
and it'll be a little unsafe with
spot,
kids.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be blind.
Yeah.
I think we'd have to at least remove one of the parking places to open up that vision.
Which has happened already. That was
Okay.
just done this past summer. You'll notice that there is a crosswalk that goes through
Yeah,
the
there
parking
is
lot
one.
there. Probably should be 2 spaces gone, but there is 1 parking space, and that's how it operates now.
Well,
This
the-
is to basically make the whole thing more accessible, even on the school property side and their sidewalk system in the parking lot. There's no ramp or anything for access, so it's just to create all of that.
What about the pole, Mike, at Vesper? That pole is about as bad of a pole that's left on Nantucket, like the one that used to be by Jimmy Glidden's and the one by Gardner. That is bad.
I'm sure we can find a dozen of those.
Yeah, but that one's bad. If we're gonna make that, are we getting them to move that back, or? Because that affects turning right. When you turn right from Vesper to Surfside Road, that pole is like
Yeah.
a dolphin for a boat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just wondering if
That'll
that's
be in the
part of
scope.
this.
That's in the project area. Whether that's actually can be moved or not, that's will be part of the design process, coordinating with the utility companies, and I'm sure we can put the request in to include that because it is in the project area. But anyway, it's ultimately meant to be an accessibility and mobility improvement for to create safe routes.
Well, this is good because that Belgian block thing was done when Matt and I were in school. That's been a long time. That's been the same for years.
Yeah,
It's just never changed. It never was.
yeah.
I mean, who knows how that got done? It just
Yeah.
happened, you know? So,
So that's good. We actually have a project for
good.
2019 now that can be funded through the TIP. Again, we'll have to amend the TIP to program that in for the design and the construction. Going on to the last table, these are a whole list of project 14 through 33 and beyond are unfunded projects. There may be some conceptual idea of what to do in these different areas, but essentially these are the projects that need to be prioritized for the future capital planning. And so these are sorted out. You'll see at the top, it's more of the Old South Road improvements for the paths and the bus pull-offs between Amelia Drive and the Rotary, and then Amelia Drive going further down. And then another section of the in-town bike path along Washington Street, but in the rest of the projects, you can look at those scoring as well. But the effort of probably this group between now and when the plan's approved is basically to flush this out and prioritize these and put these into an action plan. Not only just to spend federal and state aid, which is what the long-range transportation plan needs to do by statute, but also sort this out so they can help inform the local capital improvement plan, which you're very familiar with,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, having served on that committee. This will help inform the prioritization of projects for that plan as well. So this will help a number of different funding
Have you had anybody, you know, I had a Tom Nevis person today that I was talking with that's been posting some things on Facebook that I talked to today. It's actually worked out really well. And the Walnut bike path versus the Tom Nevis and how this has happened is really important to, have you had anyone ask you about that? Like, you know, why we moved it because of the unusual grant that we're gonna be able to make this work? I mean, this is pretty fortunate that this can actually happen, so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
That's the well when it was.
yeah,
Which
Yeah.
which is also a part of Article 10.
because the Tom Nevis thing was voted on, I mean, it's complicated, everybody, they keep getting pushed back because these other worse ones keep popping up, which is fine, it's just, I'm just curious if anyone has said anything about it, so.
No, but I think both are being funded this year. Tom Nevers is part of the capital plan. The Walwinet is part of the capital plan, at least in matching funds, and then we're
Yeah.
going to have the other 80% funded through federal funding.
Yeah.
So they should all be in the pipeline. And it'll be yes under the funding if that actually passes.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mike? Andy, you got anything?
Well, I was curious about the prospect in York Street. That's sort of come together at any, there's no funding on that?
Yeah, that's down at the
another
very, very bottom. If you're looking for that,
Yeah,
one.
I did.
There's not a number for it yet.
Seems
Right
like
now
that's a hanging problematic.
Yeah,
spot.
it's a Y intersection, and
Yeah.
we've noticed a lot of these heavily used Y intersections are problems. They're safety issues.
Yeah.
Walwinet, I'm sorry, Monomoy Road and Pulpus Road are Y intersections. Those have safety issues. A lot of the if you're coming from Four Corners and taking a right onto York Street there, that has always been a problem for the people who live there on the corner with the driveway access, site distance. There's a lot of near misses, so it's constantly something we talk about at traffic safety as a candidate for safety improvement. And quite honestly, the fix is to get rid of that lane and to have it be a perpendicular approach. I think that would address all the conflict issues that people experience, and would give the people that have try to pull out of their driveways there a lot better sight distance to see cars turning onto the road, so that there's not any collisions.
Yeah, I find that to be a scary spot,
Very.
big time.
And with a reclaimed area, that's a park opportunity.
Mhm.
You got like 15 feet of area that you can help beautify that corner a little bit better.
Well, the other issue there though too, Mike, is the one-way option at some point in time. You know, on Pleasant, on that section, if we get the roundabout at the school, otherwise you can't do it, so.
Yeah.
Which would make it a lot safer to have one way out of town there
Yeah.
and get on-street parking at the same time. That's an old idea, that's like back in the dustbin of ideas, but you have to fix the other intersection in order to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so does anyone else have anything? Mike, do you need any action on this, or what are we doing on that?
No, there's a variety of maps with the numbers provided on a map to show the prioritization. That's what those numbers are, is just where it stands for the
Okay.
roadway and a bike pedestrian priority. I did provide again the chart of anticipated funds over the 30-year period, 20-year period of this plan. So you get an idea of what federal funds are available and how the cost of these projects line up. And right now, there's a huge disconnect between cost of projects and anticipated federal funding. We're very fortunate that the state has provided discretionary funds in the past through congestion mitigation and air quality improvement funds. We have a lot of projects that improve air quality, reduce greenhouse gases, and those are good candidate projects for state funding. So we've been fortunate from there, but I think we have to continue to be more dependent on that or make up the difference with local funds.
Okay,
One question?
yes,
Go ahead,
Matt, go ahead.
We've talked about doing traffic modeling, can that be inserted into the thing, is it anywhere in there?
That got approved through capital, I
It
think.
did, but it should be,
Oh.
I'm thinking it should be at least mentioned that we're considering, yeah, because I think it's gonna be something, I think it's really
Think it
important to buy, buy support from the town about some of the roundabouts and things.
No, I agree, and that's in the goals and objectives loosely as far as data collection and analysis. The UPWP is probably a better document for specific language for that, and we can get to that when we get to that item, and I'll point out where we can, where that is in the UPWP.
And the other comment is sort of, one of the things we should be thinking about on Old South Road particularly is sort of queue jumping for the buses. What happens going in on 82 into Aspen is it's 25 minutes faster to get into Aspen from out of town, because the buses get to, every time they come to an intersection, the buses get priority and they jump the queue. So I don't know if we can build that into our roundabouts or build that into our transportation system, but that builds a permanent incentive to get on the bus. When you're sitting on the bus and you're sitting in a car and you're watching the bus go by and you know it's 25 minutes faster, you're gonna use it. When, you know, and it could be buses and taxis, you know, like it gives, so I just think we have to be thinking along those lines if we're adding 200 cars a year.
A lot of the systems are very dependent on signalization, which we can't do here.
But is there
But
a
if
way
we
to
can
do it without the signalization?
That's a good engineering,
There we go. So that's why I'm bringing it up. Is there a way to do that? That, you know, that's, you know, because it provides the right incentive. Is there a way to do that without signalization? Is there a way to do that, you know, with a turn off and back on? You jump 10 cars every time, you're 50 cars ahead of everybody by the end of Old South Road. So,
maybe WPI project, I don't know.
there we go.
Mm.
But I'm just bringing it up, because if we want to encourage it, we've got to, people have to see the reason for doing it. And they said it's one of the best things they did for their NRTA, or their regional transit, because people know it's much quicker to get on the bus to get into town than it is to take a car. Anyway,
All right, Mike, so you wanna move to, the tip review?
Sure. Again, there's a draft public notice of the TIP projects in the packet on page 44. This is relatively unchanged from last meeting. I will note at the very bottom of the table, there's a year FY19 Safe Routes to School Nantucket Public School Surfside Crosswalk Project. Again, that'll be programmed in probably in FY19 of the TIP, so that'll be taken off of the supplemental project list. The balance of these projects are as they're presented, and again, there's a bit of a disconnect in the funding available versus project cost, so that still needs to be sorted with DOT. So that's the limit of mine, and Derek Schuster's here from DOT if you want to ask him any questions about the status of that, but this is basically where we are right now. The public review of the TIP is scheduled to go out next month, so next month there'll be actual draft TIP in your packet to approve for public review. That'll go for public review and then action at the May meeting.
So this is for 2020, right?
Correct, 2020
Okay.
through 24.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Or any of this? What was the next tip thing, Mike? What did we move to this year's and next? I mean, I know we always talk about this, but it's easy to forget.
Yeah.
Is Bartlett in the tip or no?
We have it listed here in 2021 because we have preliminary plans submitted to DOT that estimates that the project be ready for construction
Yeah.
in FY21. That may
Right,
change.
so this is Derek
Yes,
from
Derek.
MassDOT. I
Gotcha.
just wanted to comment on that real quickly. So we are fully funded and programmed in our intersection improvement program right now through 21. However, MassDOT's recommending that you keep this project in your universe, and as projects move around across the state, funding does become available. So for the 2020 to 2024 TIP recommendation from us, we don't have any recommended projects for Nantucket at the moment beyond the ongoing project that's currently happening, 608833.
Okay. All right.
So we may leave that off, and then as funding becomes available, we'll just program the project in. If again, if there's other projects that aren't implemented that year, we'll just use those funds. But again, this is because of the disconnect between project cost and funding availability.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything? Before we move on to the next thing, you don't need any action for this, right?
No, just be aware
Okay.
that next month we'll need an authorization to send it for public review.
Okay. All right. So the UPWP, Mike.
Yes, same story here. This is on page 46. The budget for the UPWP. This is the same that was presented last month. And to the question of I just noticed I misnumbered some tasks there, but task 3.2, sustainable, livable, complete streets planning. There's $20,000 for direct costs. That would likely be married up with other funds that are approved by the town to advance some kind of modeling effort that you were referring to.
Okay. Matt, you want to plug Matt's point into something on this, Mike, or no?
Yeah, that's the task 3.2. the
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Didn't get that.
Yeah, which you
Got
can
it.
renumber. That's actually 3.1, but
I can't remember. What was the number at Capital, Mike? 50?
150.
Yeah, I think it was 50,000. I can't remember, but I think it was 50.
It was something, you know, it was-
And now, is that going to be part of Beta? Beta? Are they going to be
Beta.
doing that? Beta. Is it Beta? Sorry.
Because of the cost, and I don't know if it's really an engineering service or not. I'll talk to finance on it. But we're gonna have to bid those services out. There's a number of different firms that provide modeling support. VHB is one of them. We've worked with them in the
So
past.
they have our information anyway. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So as long as it's one of them. I
Yeah.
just thought we had Beta here when Matt talked about this the first time. The guy was here.
Yeah.
And I just figured I'd ask him. Okay. Do you need action on this, Mike?
Not on this either. This is general discussion. If you're happy with the tasks, the modeling and stuff is okay being included in 3.2 with it's getting a significant amount of the direct cost budget for that effort. And again, know that next month is when we'd ask for authorization to release for public review and then approve at the May meeting.
Yep. Okay, and what about we're not using any tip money for the rest of the in-town? We're gonna be funding that, correct, or no?
We're gonna submit it for funds. Again, as you saw with the cost of the project versus availability.
Right,
It's
yeah.
gonna be the same story where Derek's gonna say, listen, we're kinda short
Correct.
until next year, and then maybe there's, in the following year, there'll be funding for it. But I think we just have to play this game for the next,
Right,
well, till
I
something
understand.
changes.
okay, and where are we with Marine on any of their right-of-way issues?
I haven't started that discussion yet.
Okay. All right, does anyone else have anything? Anyone have any questions? Okay. So we'll get to the articles then, Mike. So thank you for everything, Mike. And it's a lot of stuff. It looks like, a zillion things, but it's just a list. It's not always gonna be in that order. So Andrew, do you wanna bring up, go through the articles that we're gonna be looking at?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is an annual exercise that we have done to look through the articles and pick out any that are of special concern. And again, considering what the NP and EDC does as, again, a regional planning agency, any of these that are important to our direct work. We've provided you with a staff review, so we did an internal review of the articles. You're free to add other articles that you think, and of course, you're free to vote something different from what the staff recommendation is. How this goes is typically there's a motion to say that it is a planning concern, there's a vote on that, and then there's a motion to decide what you want to do. These, I think as you know by now, the warrant has been published with FinCom and Planning Board recommendations. Those are the recommendations that carry the day at town meeting. This is basically a supplemental bit of information that we post if there might be any differing opinions or other considerations that you want to bring forward.
Yep.
So I think we'll go through the list that we have, and then you all can decide if there's other articles that you might want to tack on. And we have some guests here to talk about
Yep.
some specific articles. So.
Yep, I see him here.
So if we get started, basically the first four articles are all transportation-related articles, 11, 12, 16, and 17. They all have positive FinCom recommendations. Since really they were generated by the work that the commission does, we would ask for your support on those.
Now, Andrew, before anyone else asks this question, let me just ask it. Very seldom do we get a planning commission recommendation on the warrant.
We
So-
never do.
Well, didn't we get one time? I thought we did.
Nope.
Okay, so we never got one. Okay. So
It's either-
there's
it's either-
your answer. Anyone was thinking that, because we brought that up before. We don't, so when we look at these, they're more of a commission instead of board sort of viewpoint. So I think it's a different type of lens to look at some of this stuff, so.
But could I
Yeah.
follow on that?
Yeah.
Did you just say that historically there's never been a comment out of this commission?
I thought there
about
was
these?
one, but that 30,000
So-
square foot thing,
So,
remember?
just to be sure, to understand what people need to address and what we're hearing, this is sort of for information
Yeah.
and to be broadcast for anybody who wants to look at this, to hear the commentary and that kind of thing, rather than anything we'd be voting on. Is
Well, what
that-
we usually do, Judith, is we pull out articles that we didn't look at planning board.
Right.
Because it just
Yeah.
been, because of the way the system
Yeah.
works. That's kind of how we
But we don't-
plug this in, is,
But we don't, you said there's no written
No.
commentary from us on it.
nope.
So what are we? what-
Other than the final chart here, the final column, which is here to be filled in after your discussion tonight, that is put up with other town meeting information.
Okay,
But it's not part of the
commentary.
warrant.
Not on the
Okay, and
warrant.
not commentary, it's just kind of.
Nothing is printed on it.
Thank you.
So, okay. So, you want to start out with 11, Andrew? Or
Yep,
do you wanna-
artic-
Okay.
So Article 11, this is page 53 in your packet. You want to see what the FinCom has recommended, which they have recommended this. It's a 2/3 motion at town meeting. And Mike, it covers fairgrounds, basically where the model rotary is right now, and the Newtown Road, correct?
The sidewalks, right?
Yes, Old South Road between Amelia and the Rotary, Fairgrounds between Old South and Newtown, and then Newtown from Fairgrounds to Cooper Farm.
What about my little mutt path?
It
It was on the picture.
All the mutt paths you can want.
Is it in there?
Yes,
It is.
absolutely.
So everybody needs to know this. This is important, because there's plenty of room for this, where everybody, the multi-use path.
Okay, I thought you said a mutt.
Eight
path.
muck.
Okay, I thought you said M-U-T.
The path from Connemara to the bus stop
Uh,
is in this improvement too?
And down to Amelia Drive. It's going from all the way from the I&M on the south side of the road, all the way across to.
That's part of this? I
Yes.
thought, where's, it's gonna, not all the way to Young's Way, just Amelia, right?
Just to Amelia, correct.
Okay. See, nobody somebody asked me this today and I didn't know the answer. Damn. Okay, no, it's fine. That's good. That's why it's 5. Okay. Because we plugged in the Newtown sidewalk into this article. Okay,
Correct.
awesome. Does anyone have any questions? Andy?
You brought up that little spot.
I bring it up every year
10
because it
years at
keeps
least.
getting taken out, and it's back in. When I saw this new design, I said, "Whoa, my little path is in there." The engineer must have thought it was a good idea.
Imagine you go out and do it
It's-
yourself.
How much you have to pay?
It's a no-brainer because we have to cross the road 2 times to go to fairgrounds. Bike path, that's insane. So everybody rides on the road and then they get yelled at out the window of people's cars, and there's no reason for that. There's plenty of room for a mutt path right there in front of Ackeye all the way around the corner.
Yep.
There's no land issues at all. I mean, there's nothing. It's all in the layout, so. Okay, so is everybody good with Article 11? Anyone have any questions or comments or?
The only
anything?
comment I would make is that I think it's important that a comment be made in reference to, it's not just to support the roundabout or something on fairgrounds. It's inclusive of other parts of this project to show a bigger, grander scale of what's going to be happening. Because when the voters just see the first
Yeah.
line and they stop reading at Fairgrounds Road, that's where they cut off, and then they say $5 million, and I've already have a problem with the mock-up. I think it's too small, et cetera. Not stating me.
Yeah.
I've been approached 2 times already today before it was even completed.
Yeah, but there's
You know,
more.
the
there's-
mock-up.
But they're moving the pole
Right.
across the road there and
So-
everything, so.
I think it's important to to state that it's more than just the roundabout.
Sure, and I think they make that clear in the voter's guide to town meeting, that there's a little bit more descriptive language in there, and the even faster version, like my pitch, is that half of that funding goes towards bike, pedestrian, transit improvements. So it's not all just for the roundabout, half of it is for all modes of transportation.
I know that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the people in the audience probably will stop reading. you know,
Yeah,
as clear as it may be.
yeah, I hear you.
Okay, so you want to take a vote of support from the commission, Andrew? Should we do that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it'd be
Yeah,
a
we
motion that it is a planning concern as your first consideration.
Okay, so I'll accept the motion that this is of planning commission concern.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Second it? Andy.
Either or.
Andy, sorry.
Yeah.
Sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll accept the motion to support Article 11.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Wait, I gave you the option.
I got the first.
There was a delay.
All those in favor?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Tonight, Andy is to be second.
Yeah.
Separate us.
Okay, Mike, so you want to go to the milestone?
Mr. Chairman, this is on
Andrew.
page 54 of your
Yeah.
packet, and this is to demonstrate local support for the state-initiated work, the Rotary and Milestone Road. Anything to add on this, Mike?
Know that it's two things, the reconstruction of the rotary to add capacity and the widening to add shoulders, at least 1 foot shoulders on both sides of Milestone Road from the rotary to Bunker Road. And
And
it's
the-
purely to petition the state, there's no funding
And,
associated.
well, Derek's on the phone with us. This is
Pretty pleased there.
this is including the rotary turning it into a roundabout, right?
Correct.
Okay. It's funny, because today, the person I was talking to, it's funny, I had to give the person the story of how we tried to do this. And nobody had ever seen a roundabout and didn't understand the difference. And the person to me that I talked to today said, well, we have to fix Milestone first. And I had to go back to 2005 and 6 of how we tried to do that, but we weren't ready at that time to understand the difference. So unfortunately, like everything else, it takes a long time here to understand these things. So that's part of this. This is a spirit of the meeting article. This isn't a funding issue. This is to petition the state, right?
To petition the state, correct.
Okay. So anyone have any comments? So I'll accept a motion that this is of commission concern.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm sorry. Who made that, Judith?
Judith seconded.
I second it, I'm taking turns.
Yep.
That side of the table.
I made a motion.
Sorry, I'll try to do better on that, Alan. I'm
Yeah,
sorry
I-
about that.
This is actually, to be honest, quite hard to keep up with.
It's all right. Okay, and then I'll accept a motion to give a positive recommendation to Article 12.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Article 16, Mike, Andrew, like both of you, or whatever.
So Article 16, page 55 in your packet, this is the Orange Street in-town bike path. Again, this is a project that we've talked about for many years. It goes back to 1990, I believe, when some of the initial work was done on the concept of the bike path here. There is a positive recommendation, $2,508,000 to advance this project. And Mike, what are we talking about for area here?
Yeah, what spot is this, Mike? From where to where? From
From the rotary to Spruce Street.
That's okay. That's what I thought. Okay. And there's a lot of space up until you get to about East Creek Road, and then we start to
And utility
dwindle
right-of-way
a little
issues.
bit. Okay. So does anyone have any comments about this? Okay. So I'll accept the motion that this is of commission concern.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. That was Judith seconding. not Eleanor. Okay, I'll accept the motion to support Article 16.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you. Okay, Article 28.
Nope, 17.
No, 17, sorry, Andrew. 17.
Article 17 starts on page 56 in your packet.
Yep.
This is Surfside Area Road Reconstruction. This is Lovers Lane, Monahans, Okawa. So this finishes off the network of
Yep.
the roads that have become public. The taking was done roughly 3 years ago.
The easements are in?
The easements and reconstruction will come out of this appropriation.
Okay.
So there's still additional design work and other things to do. So again, this finishes off the network. If you can imagine Boulevard and the section of Lovers, Okawa, Monahans, and then which connects you back up to Old South Road and completes that loop. So it's an important project. We've discussed it for a long time. And again, I'm happy to see the FinCom give this a positive recommendation.
Too. And the neighbors were very positive at the, at the, couple Thursdays ago, the little get-together, BBW. All the drainage issues have been addressed and the bike path going on the far side of Lovers. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this before we take a motion? Okay, I'll accept a motion to this is of commission concern.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is that Judith?
That was
Judith,
Judy.
yep. And I'll accept a motion to support Article 17.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
One opposed.
One opposed.
It's philosophical. We should be bettering parts of these. I think we need to do this. I'm glad we're doing it. But, you know, that we shouldn't, when we accept stuff from developments, that it should be coming back. Even if it's 30 years later, we should be accepting it in the standards that we want at that time, or at least doing a partial betterment. I didn't get that. I didn't get anywhere at the select board level because there were a lot of people at the meeting and they want it paid for out of the tax base. But I think if we continue to do this, I'm looking at it from a fiscal standpoint. We shouldn't be letting people do things, cheaply and then leave it for the town to pay for it later. So, thank you very much.
The Bronze subdivision was 1980, Matt.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay, just
I
letting you
understand,
know.
and we're trying to get better at
I-
it. But if someone isn't the
Yeah.
squeaky wheel and mentioning
Yeah,
that, we won't get better at it.
when we did the Surfside area plan, we tried, I think it was 20% betterment, something like that. And the number of properties out there is so small. And the people that live in those other roads that have to pay to fix them too now, because they're not part of this. The Skyline is not part of this specific article of these takings.
No, I understand it's hard. We
I know.
voted better one time. We voted it better and someone was gonna pay for everything out on, going out toward, what was it? Monument. And then when it came time to assess it, the town didn't wanna assess it because it'd be too hard to assess. So, someone had promised to pay
Yeah.
for it. We voted it through and talked at town meeting that it was all gonna be better, and then we didn't. And so all
Well-
I'm saying is, I just think it's an important concept that needs more exploration, not just our tax rate is cheap, so we can do this. That's all.
Well, point taken.
Thank you.
Okay. 28, Andrew.
So, Mr. Chairman, these next two articles, 28 and 37, are related to affordable housing. Article 28 is basically a sum of $5 million being appropriated. The town and the Housing Trust, I know the finance director worked on this particular scope of this article. I know we have some people here who could maybe give you some more details about it. It has a positive recommendation.
Yeah.
And the funding is really coming from the CPA, isn't that right? With some advanced borrowing, so.
CPC.
Community Preservation Act, and the CPC is the committee.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, Andrew. I remember Arthur Drosha spoke against that. So, okay, you guys want to talk about this, or? Yeah. Okay. No, this is the other article. This isn't yours. Toby, don't get too
Jumpy.
excited. We haven't got to yours yet. This is only $5 million.
Good evening, thank you. Brooke Moore, Vice Chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. We went before the CPC and made a funding request this year, and they did include $750,000 in this fiscal year allocation for us. And then we went before the Select Board and requested $3 million from them, and they voted positively and then turned it over to the Finance Department. And the question was, how were they going to raise that money? And so the Finance Department came up with a recommendation of using CPC funding to do a larger bond of $5 million, in sort of a bigger scale. And basically what it boils down to is the CPC has pledged future CPA funds on the order of $450,000 to $500,000 a year, which represents somewhat more than 20% of their annual allocation amount, of which they're required to spend 10% on affordable housing. So
Right.
basically, they're doubling, making a commitment to double, where in fact they had tripled that 10% already for fiscal year 2020 in their recommendation. So it falls right in line with the commitment that the CPC has made to the Affordable Housing Trust in the last few years. In part, a plan to use the Affordable Housing Trust as the primary funding source for affordable housing efforts. The CPC had responded to many requests from Habitat and Housing Nantucket for specific funding for projects, and their allocation this year of $750 was intended for the Affordable Housing Trust to be sort of the one-stop shop for funding for affordable housing going forward. So funding us on a larger scale so that we can then allocate those funds across the different organizations that are working on housing on Nantucket. So our goals are, there's a lot that's come up since this all started, including Tobias's article and other things. So we're very excited about what's going on in the community and the conversations and the opportunities we have coming up this year. So we're grateful for everyone's commitment, and our intention for the use of those funds is primarily for acquisition of land for further development of affordable housing, as well as funding other programs varieties of different programs. But the primary focus will be acquisition of real estate to add SHI-listed units. That's our priority. So, any questions?
Anyone have any questions?
I just have one comment. I mentioned it to Tuck, I think, before. There's something that happened back in the 1960s and early 70s in Shaker Heights, Ohio, very affluent community. And it's in textbooks now. It's called the Shaker Heights Plan. And what their housing authority did, instead of buying land and building conglomerates of housing all in one spot, they had a committee that went around when any house came on the market in their whole area, they would look at that house, and if they could work a reasonable deal, they bought that house, and it put it in their affordable thing. And everyone thought it would be a terrible idea, it would bring neighborhoods down, all the wealthy people didn't like it. Turned out in the end that by moving a low-income person in next to wealthy people, it turned out that the low income did not bring down. Instead, the wealthy people raised the low-income people up so that they ended up dressing and talking and acting like their neighbors. And it was a very successful project, and it's been in textbooks for years. I would suggest that you might want to think about doing something like that on the Nantucket, to have money to buy a house here or there or wherever when they come on the market.
I believe Mr. Glidden will be talking about
Yeah,
Article
I mean,
37
it's-
that addresses that
Yeah.
question directly. And I do want to say it's something that I really appreciate about trends in affordable housing. I read all the time about what's going on nationally in affordable housing efforts. And, you know, those of us of a certain age remember projects, and that word has a pretty bad connotation. And I think
Yeah, it
an
does.
important thing for us to remember is that the trend in affordable housing now is mixed income developments, so that you are not warehousing all people of lower income in one location, and that that is the goal for the Fairgrounds Road project is a multi-income rental project. And I use the word project because I see it as different rental development. So there are different trends in affordable housing from those that, as I say, us of a certain age recall from the 60s and 70s. So any other I can help you with?
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Brooke, for everything
My
you're doing.
pleasure. Thank
Okay.
you.
Could I?
Yes.
That this is a matter of planning concern?
Yes. Is there, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for helping me, Judith.
No,
Yeah, I was like
I'm
stumbling on
I'm
this
on
now.
the stress board,
Yeah.
so I figure I should do some, say something. Yeah, well, I've been going to enough meetings.
Okay. And I'll accept a motion to support Article 28.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Doesn't mean
Second.
Oh, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who seconded?
John did.
John.
Thank you very much. Okay, 38, no,
37.
37, okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, Article 37 is a citizen-sponsored article. Starts on page 59 of your packet. Mr. Glidden is here as the sponsor of that. The FinCom has an amount in here recommended of $10 million, and I believe they've upped that, right, to, where are we at, 20?
The board of selectmen up to 20, then comes to the 10.
So they will have a separate recommendation on this. And actually, it is included, if you look at page 60, so they've included a separate comment. To consider that, someone will have to amend the article, propose an amendment of the article, and that will be discussed on the floor. So maybe we can hear from Tobias on this?
Hi, Tobias, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Lowell.
No problem.
I just wanted to, thank everybody for having me here today, and also recognize that there's a, whole team of people who have contributed to this. Numerous members of the FinCom, Tucker, Brooke, members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and the community at large. So, as well as Rick Atherton was very involved in drafting this. So, this program really evolved, kind of, as you mentioned earlier on, Bert, of kind of the necessity to, purchase units in mixed site locations. And so what I did was, as I went back and I looked at 2018, all the properties that were sold, and I went through and I selected 11 properties that would kind of get us to the 24 units that would help us meet kind of safe harbor if you purchase them all in 1 year, or kind of looking at the bigger picture, if we're about 40 units short of getting to the 10% affordable, it really gets us really close to that number. So, over the last couple of years, I've heard a lot of, some of you may remember 106 Surfside and a big, conflict we had there with development. We really didn't take action on affordable housing in the way that we really should have, and now we're dealing with Surfside Crossing. And, this article, is looking at all these different developments that have happened, over the last, 10, 15 years, and recognizing the need that, there's some value in spreading things out into different neighborhoods. So, through a long dialogue with the finance committee, we put together some financials to see exactly what a program would look like. And so after numerous hours, we kind of have this 2-pager. So I'd love to kind of walk you through it. First off, if we start on the bottom of the first page, looking at units, you can see, just where these are all pre-existing homes that were sold in 2018. So it's a retrospective to see what this program would have looked like if it were in effect. You can see the amount of improvements we assumed for each building, a couple $100,000. In some cases, adding in a tertiary dwelling, adding in an apartment. We also laid out, did some research into kind of the trend from investment to summer homes or year-round to investment, and so roughly you're seeing about a third of homes going from year-round to a seasonal or investment market. So the trend of housing for having a year-round sustainable community is not very good right now. So this is an effort to try to reverse that trend in some small capacity. Kind of walking through the big numbers, we imagine this program would, these financials are laid out for if all the properties were purchased in 1 year. So if you look at the total debt, including the improvement cost of the properties, it's about $15.8 million. So 20-year bonding, 4%, it's about 1.1 million per year. We then went through and laid out an operating income and operating expenses, and I can walk through in more detail on the next slide. But just roughly, gross operating income is about $680,000 a year, and the operating expenses are about $461,000, and so your net income year 2 is about $212,000 because we're assuming you're not collecting any rents your first year, just to be overly conservative. Turning over and looking at, kind of at the top, you'll see investment. That's the more vertically oriented page. You'll kind of see a little more breakdown. So we're looking at 11 properties again, creating 24 units. 24 is, we kind of had to pick a number to work with, so 24 is the number. Creating 53 beds, which I think is important. A lot of times we talk about units, but I think there's some value in recognizing that a program like this, you do create a lot of 2 and 3 bedroom, properties or units, which are very valuable. You can see the capital expenses there. I'm more than happy to talk about those in detail. We made a number of really solid detailed analysis about what the capital expenditures would be. We went back with a team of people, myself, Tucker, Brooke, Ann Kutzbo is very much involved in kind of looking at real world numbers. I believe Housing Nantucket oversees about 37 rental properties. And, so we have some pretty good numbers in regards to, what things cost on a yearly basis. So, just kind of walking through those capital expenditures, we anticipated, kind of the lost income from real estate tax if these became a town-owned asset. We anticipated that. Yeah. We really walk through everything to make sure we cover every number. So, sewer, electric, insurance, administrative fees, repairs and maintenance, marketing to make sure that the units are occupied, replacement reserves. So when we need to fix something, the program has funding to be managed. The DHCD monitoring, landscaping, management for the property. I'm not trying to skimp on wages here. You see $73,000. That's a serious wage. So I wanted to really show that we're trying to show all the numbers. And then at the bottom, you can see the rents laid out. So with 11 properties, each property, you would need to have at least one unit designated as 80% AMI to be on the shy list, and then the other 1 or 2 units could be at market rate. And so we tried to be, conservative in laying those out. So we got, kind of your 80%, your 120s, and then your market rate. And I believe the market rate is at 1. Tucker, can you remind me again what the market rate is at again? Right. Well, I think in general it's like 170 or 160. It's somewhere in there. It's even maybe it's 150. Anyway, so I just wanted to present to you kind of the financials and kind of lay out that a program like this can be, very revenue positive. I know Matt has had a lot of time to kind of look over these financials, so it's great to have another opportunity to talk about these numbers, talk about kind of a need. We've consistently heard from the community, everybody I talked to, that there's a real need to enact a program along these lines. There's a need for mixed site. There's definitely a problem when it comes to affordable housing. And lastly, there's a huge problem with scale. We've been dilly-dallying talking about affordable housing for years, and we constantly go in the wrong direction. We're losing a third of homes to seasonal investment properties or summer homes. And so I just appreciate any sort of feedback you have. Please be honest. We're all in, my go-to assumption all the time is we're all in this together. And so we all want to try to make a program that functions and that can be successful going into town meeting, at the ballot box, but also for years to come. So thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
They have tightened up the numbers substantially and they're much improved. The first go round of capital expenses were sort of a little light, and now I think they've gone the other way and gone a little heavy. And I appreciate the work that Tobias and everyone has done to sort of look at this, fully look at this, which is positive. I support it for a few different reasons. First off, back in the comp plan days, one of the best things we did was a consensus building, and the thing that came out of it is that houses should be scattered site all over the place. And it was about one of the only things that we all agreed on in the whole process. And so that, I think this achieves that, sort of like what you were talking about with Shaker Heights. I think Toby didn't hit on it, but one of the questions I had to him was, of the 11 that you might have bought last year, what happened to them? So he dug into it, and he found out that 3 or 4 of those 11, 3 or 4 of the 11 were going from year round into, seasonal tourist homes. And so that's the trend. We're losing 30%, 28%, 35% of everything that sells. And that's because, there's a, externality in the market where people from off island have a lot more money than us. And so the market's not going to work properly when you have that sort of thing interfering with it, which is what we're having. And we'll never get ahead as long as, if 30% of the homes that sell every year, or the year-round homes that sell are going out of year-round use, then we're never going to catch up. So I think this is a chance for us to purchase homes to catch up. The other point is, after the bonds are paid, you go out 20 or 30 years, there's an income stream at that point. A lot of these are rental homes. There's an income stream coming in that could enable us to do more. So this may actually, on its own, scale up. And then if we find the impacts, the other part about this that I like is it's flexible. If we find that, that all of a sudden Surfside Crossing happens at a decent scale, Richmond, et cetera, and we're in our Shy is satisfied, the rents are dropping because there's so much supply, we don't have to do it. We've satisfied our Shy. This is sort of, I look at this as having the ability to do it if you need it. You don't have to do it. And the other point we talked earlier about was, Brooke brought up how it's changed. Well, it's how you have to have a mix of people and ages and things. That's what they've found is, when you look at the developments back 30 years ago, you put all one set of people in and you'd have a bunch of problems. All one bedrooms, you have a bunch of problems. So now when they give you money for affordable housing, you have to have actually a mix in the building or a mix on the site. This does that, and to be eligible for the federal money and the state money, this does that on its own. This moves it around the island and does it just by the way it's constructed. So I think all of that is good. The only comment I would say that sort of scares me a little bit, and that we talk about this. All the homes they're targeting were built in the 70s and 80s. It's some of the worst building. I'd target homes before 1950 or newer homes, but.
Yeah, that's the new dirt.
Yeah, so anyway, I just, you know, what you picked are, so, yeah, there was some pretty bad rules then for, you know, for
Yeah.
some pretty bad building practices, and we have to
Yeah.
be careful when we look at them, that they're, you know.
No, great concern, and you know, without getting into super uber the details, like I picked these 11 properties out of 100, and one of my criteria was like, you know, they already have new roofs. They've, you know, at least half of them had been thoroughly restored at some point in the last 10 years. So they are, you know, I hear your point, Matt, totally. But
Yeah, and I trust that we would do that,
Yeah.
but I just thought it was funny, you know.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at a house to move to my employee property, I
Yeah.
try to get the old ones.
Yeah.
You know, anything
Just-
from around this era, you know, some of them were too tight with not understanding how to do
Yeah.
it.
right.
Oh, the air, crawl
Yeah,
space.
exactly.
Go ahead, John.
I like the way that this is presented. I like the directions everything is going. I think the Affordable Housing Trust has made remarkable gains in the last couple of years now. I guess my only question is, we're going to implement this, or if we get get the funds to implement this, from the logistics and who is going to be picking out the properties, what expertise is going to be used? Is it just going to be a volunteer board, which I love the makeup of? Who is going to be managing it and overseeing the
Great.
properties? And there's
Totally.
once this all gets settled in, I know it will get worked out, but it's just
Kinda what's
something I'm
the-
curious
Yeah.
that somebody else might ask, especially at town meeting.
Yeah.
No, it's a great question. So I wanted to cover it in my initial presentation, but there's so much to cover. I wanted to keep it brief, but great question, Mr. Trudell, John. So essentially, how the program would operate is, you know, there's first like a checklist that needs to happen for which properties need to be purchased, right? Because we wouldn't be purchasing the same properties; it would be totally new. So kind of a selection of, you know, are they in a different zone of Nantucket? One, are they up to the standards we want? Are they near public transportation potentially? I don't think the question of whether or not they're on public sewer matters, but, you know, is the septic up to speed? So we kind of need a basic checklist for, you know, what we are going to purchase. You know, we definitely want to see purchasing properties that have 2 to 3 units on them. So I'd imagine that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund would kind of bring in some extra people. I don't want to say form like a new work group or something, but essentially bringing some expertise to, you know, kind of enhance their understanding of, you know, what the checklist looks like for purchasing properties. Okay. Beyond that, there's also kind of a step in regards to the financing and how that rolls out. So there's some important pieces to keep in mind when you're going out as a town and purchasing a property. And I'm sure you're aware of this. It's a little different than, you know, John with $1 million in his pocket, who's like, all right, cash deal, let's make it done. So there's a couple things that we can improve in the process moving forward that we need to be conscious of, working with the finance department to try to smooth that process out for purchasing those specific properties. So that's kind of piece number 2 that needs to happen through the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Now, after properties are purchased, you know, kind of the question comes in regards to management. So ultimately, the management of the properties would either go to someone like Housing Nantucket or another entity that has expertise in managing properties like this. So the town wouldn't be in the housing business. We would be using our borrowing capacity potentially to execute this program. But, you know, I don't think there's any intention for the town to be running it. That being said, I think there's a great opportunity when it comes to looking at the need for, you know, town staff. You know, there's some important, you know, high-level executives that we want to, when we recruit for the town, the question of housing always kind of comes up. You know, someone like, you know, Roberto or Brian, it's hard to get people of caliber here when we don't have housing for them. So within this program, the town has an option to, you know, to place someone in one of those homes, and they'd execute an agreement with Housing Nantucket or another entity to be able to, or Halkeen, to be able to bring a town staff member into that housing. Does that roughly answer your question on process?
Well, a lot of it.
Yep.
And I guess, who is the point man?
Who's
Yeah, I see a management figure here for $73,000, which is a nice salary. Who's the point man? Who is going to actually?
so that would be as if Housing Nantucket were to run the program.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be their management fees. Essentially the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and I'm not a member of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so please correct me if I ever get anything wrong. Folks who are on
Yeah,
there.
let me just, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
We already have a very competent staff person, that's Tucker Holland. He's been, let's not forget that he's on staff, he's been bringing forward a lot of this. In the event that this passes, I've had conversations with the town manager about additional staffing, for that department. And again, that's all to be discussed, at least, in the next fiscal year budget. So right now, Tucker is the staff person. He's, I think, been doing a great job with the trust. They work very closely together. And our administrative staff provides all the backup they need right now. So with additional resources, which again, this is a great discussion to actually have about resources. I mean, I think you can remember a year or two ago, we were talking about $350,000 for an entire fiscal year. So I'm happy we're talking about realistic resources to address the problem. And what will come in the future is, in the event that this passes, additional capacity built into the office.
And my only comment is, again, I support everything about this right now. And I guess I'm just trying to ask the questions that someone else might answer or ask at town meeting and how we're setting this up. And I am fully confident in Tucker's abilities. I just know that in its infant stage, we have one property, two properties as we acquire them. Once we get up to 10 and 30, it's going to really be a full-time person that, Tucker, I know you have other work description pieces that you have in place. To take on another role like this, you're going to need help.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of maybe underscore or elaborate on a couple of points that Tobias was making. So again, I don't think that it's the town's desire to be managing these properties, should everything come together. So there will be a process where Tobias alluded to it. The trust fund likely would reach out to community members with expertise in certain regards. Perhaps it's the law, perhaps it's real estate, perhaps it's property management, and have what I refer to as a review committee, much like we had a review committee for the Six Fairgrounds project. So that body can be advising the trust on what are the criteria that we want to set when we go about selecting properties, as Tobias alluded to. Then the trust ultimately would, in concert with Brian Turbott's office, be issuing, through the procurement process, RFIs and RFPs for properties that fit the criteria, and the review committee would be in position to help evaluate those properties for which there was response from owners in the marketplace. Then there would separately be an RFP for the type of management services that Tobias was describing. So, Housing Nantucket could well be an interested party in providing that management, as well as other qualified parties. And so the town would have to evaluate the response to the proposals and select an appropriate party. Yeah. And we tried to, so Tobias alluded to, I think part of the challenge in the FinCom process was, we're not sure about your numbers. We're not sure, if it's gotten along enough. And so we've spent quite a bit of time this last couple of weeks in really going line by line, as Tobias mentioned, getting input from a variety of different sources, including Housing Nantucket, which is, has 37 properties that they do manage and so forth. So we feel that we have I tried to get it into a 2-page format, and we've got a realistic look at, what this program might look like. And I think part of the point of it was, we feel it's very important that the voters and folks who are at town meeting are taking a realistic look at the program and know what it is that they are voting on. So no one is coming in and saying, well, this is a really inexpensive program. It's not. And I don't think there's a reason to hide from that. We just want people to be informed about what this program is intended to be and, what a realistic look at it is. So.
Okay. Bert, did you have something?
Yeah.
Before I say anything? Okay.
You town government people won't like what I'm gonna say, but the government never does it cheaper or more economically than the private sector.
Yep.
And we've had housing in Nantucket, be the housing authority appointing to that board, been doing it for 15, 20 years here. And they have a whole organization set up to go evaluate houses, determine what's wrong with them, what's gonna cost to fix them and all that. Unfortunately, they don't get to keep the land the house is on, they have to get it moved to some land that they have acquired somewhere else. But I would just suggest, and I know you've been talking with them, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. They've been doing it for 37 properties.
No, absolutely. And Anne has been part of the formulation of, how we might look at this. I'm sure they would have good input into the criteria that, we would want to consider as we evaluate the properties. And again, they may well have an interest in taking on the additional management. We're talking about 24 additional units to the 37 that they presently
Does anyone else have anything?
I have
Yes,
I like the concept. I have the same concern about town government getting involved. I think the conflict of interest, it's a small town. I think the potential for conflicts of interest, and I like the idea of a private management of these properties as well. Keep it out of the government. It's just.
I think the trust, Brian Turbot could speak to this better than I can, but, with the bonding and the, kind of the finance side of it, the town needs to be involved on.
To a degree, for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the ongoing management, again, the intention is to get a third party.
Okay, so I got a couple questions.
Yep.
All right, so is this gonna remove these properties from the tax rolls?
Yes, and we've enumerated that.
I saw that. I'm pretending I'm at town meeting a little bit at the same time.
No, that's what.
Because that's gonna be a question.
Well, it is
Okay.
now.
All right, so when we talk about the covenants, now is a 120 AMI a shy list house, Brooke? I didn't know that. I thought it was 80.
The way that this program is intended is it's all rental. So,
Oh, okay.
So at
I
each
got it.
site,
Okay, so that's why they're eligible.
there has to be 180.
All right, that's
Yeah.
why they're eligible. Okay.
Yeah.
Because, oh, God.
It's trying to be clear on that.
We want people to, the covenant program is, I love the covenant program. I wish we could do more. Well, we can, and we are. We have the family covenant article this year that's gonna pass without going to Boston and not pass, unfortunately. We have another article that's on the warrant that we gave a negative to. I'm just gonna call it the bonus lot. The big, gigantic, behemoth lots in Tom Nevers and places where you can play football. They maybe have 2 different Super Bowls in the same. There's a lot of land out there that can't get used, okay? So there's some great ideas that haven't been flushed yet. Taking houses off the tax rolls just to get to the shy list when we have 6 FG that's gonna get us there, and some of these other projects are gonna get us there. They're not gonna get us there.
Well, there.
Okay.
If with Six Fairgrounds, Richmond.
I know that there's a delay there,
There's-
but it's gonna end up happening.
Right, but
at
let's
some
just
point.
say they all happen and so forth. There's still a shortfall of 39 units. So this would go a good distance toward filling that gap.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a different question related to this, because Toby, I'm not trying to be against your article. I mean, I didn't use the term that I want to use for this, but I won't say it. It's okay. There's so much. I mean, a house on Pine Tree. You got 16 Pine Tree here. A friend of mine bought a house on Pine Tree. It was a fixer-upper. Lives up away. Fixed the house up and sold it this year to a local. I mean, locals are buying houses for $8, $9 to $1 million.
I know who bought
It's-
that house, yeah.
Okay.
I went and bought it.
Oh, you did? Isn't it 15 Pine Tree?
Well, it's,
Or 13? It's 15 or 13.
I toured 16. That was on the
That's
list.
on the other side of the road.
13 might have sold as well.
Okay. Well, maybe that was the one. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that we're worried about off-islanders buying our local homes. Well, locals are buying off-islanders' houses too. So let's not get dived right into that. And it's not, it's moving back and forth, okay? Is there a way that we could sell any of these units at some point? Like, in other words, you want people to own a house that's a year-round guaranteed house.
Well,
I mean, that's the thing, is that I thought this article was gonna be to snag a place before it gets sold on the market so that we can sort of get it to where we want it. Primary covenant, possibly a tertiary, depending on how big the lot is.
yeah. So
You know what I'm saying?
Totally. I totally hear you now. To get into a couple of those details. So for these to work on the shy list, they need to have deed restrictions placed
Yeah.
on at least the unit that is permanently affordable.
Right.
So in theory, if there was a point in the future, 20 years from now, where the Board of Selectmen was like, okay, we've met the shy list and I don't know, we all live in storage containers and we're all happy goosey, the board could sell them in the future. They're an asset on the town's books. Now that deed restriction, I think is very, I don't like the idea of deed restrictions, 30-year deed restrictions or this, that, and the other thing. I think it should be permanent.
No, they
And-
have to be for the year-round unit.
Exactly. And so that flexibility is there, but I think the intention is in the, at least for the foreseeable future, that they would remain as a rental property.
Okay. What about moving houses? The cost to move houses to
So-
some
so-
of Ann's properties.
Yeah, so this is a great point as well. So one of the things that the finance committee was interested in was deed restrictions or interest in properties. So the original language of the article through the motion of the FinCom will be expanded to include deed restrictions or interest in properties. And so kind of through that capacity, there is a possibility to potentially purchase shy units at a lower cost than the financials we've presented you today. But we wanted to really keep things as simple as possible and say, here's the intention of the program. There's other things that are possible, but this is the most kind of expensive way to do it.
Okay. I mean, that $3.36 a thousand, second lowest in the state, Val.
Yeah. And
I'm just saying, and it keeps going down.
yeah.
That's a math equation.
It's just true.
It's going down because the assessments are going up.
I understand that.
Okay.
I know what causes it to go down there.
And I hope you
Done my
I
homework.
hope you see
I'm
that.
just saying, I just worry about that
No, it's
issue.
it's
I mean,
it's a
stripping places from the tax rolls is and this is another thing that people don't know. I mean, I just want to ask this to make sure when we have Hal Keen, like, do some of these, okay. Does Sherburne Commons pay taxes? Property taxes? Andrew? I mean, I'm just asking.
I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't know to answer that
Okay.
off the cuff here.
Because what about,
I think they do.
I think they do, too.
All those units who bought them, the housing units, years ago. paid tax.
and how keen, if 6FG goes through, that they pay taxes on that property?
They will,
Yeah.
yes.
See, this is another little nugget, okay?
But I just want to point out that in the financials that were handed out, it's accounted for that we're losing that revenue. It's
No,
a cost of the program.
I understand
Yeah,
that. But so is an abatement, you know what I mean? I get it, it plugs itself into the town's, I know. It
But
just resets.
We're not ignoring it. Again,
Yeah.
it's sort of.
Oh,
an
I'm not
eyes wide
saying
open.
you are.
No, I know.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I see it, yeah, look, that's the first thing I noticed. But I'm saying as far as what people are gonna say. Okay, that's all I'm saying. This is sort of like a land bank for housing. You know, I get it. I'm not saying I'm even against it. I think there's a lot of potential here. You don't have to spend the money. Is this a debt exclusion or is this a authorization?
So to get in that, that's a great question. So looking at, a couple different things. One is, this is assuming, buying the properties, if you purchase the properties last year, which is at, potentially the height of the market. So it provides some flexibility to purchase them at future dates. We, in kind of our discussion about the properties, we don't anticipate the town ever buying 11 properties all at once.
Right. No.
Probably 2, 3 a year, spread out over years, maybe 4 in 1 year. That would be a lot, I think. That being said, with the short-term rental tax, there's a significant amount of funds that are going to be associated that in the millions of dollars. And so, potentially what this article is doing is giving an authorization to, kind of act now.
Yeah.
But the town, if the Board of Selectmen chooses to, designate funds accordingly, a significant portion of this program, if not all of it, will be covered by the short-term rental tax.
Okay. Last question.
But ultimately, it is a borrowing. That's how
Last
it's
question,
proposed.
because I'm not saying I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to think about what town meeting's gonna be like for you, okay? Because this isn't gonna be all lovey, okay? There's gonna be a lot of questions. One of the things that I just, when we take land that's like it should be a seasonal home that's writing checks for us. You don't want to go out and snag a lot somewhere with just happens to have a couple of houses on it. That's a 2.5, 3 acre lot somewhere. I think we need to be focused on the properties that you have here, all of the right areas, right zoning. You know what I'm saying? That will be somebody may ask that question. We're not going to be out in Squam looking for houses. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing.
There was like one, just so you know, I did select, I had like another 3 just as kind of like backup ones.
Yeah.
And there was one in Nantucket and there was one in Sconset, right on the main road in Sconset, one right on Mass Ave.
Trying to get people to not drive, and we're buying them in the hottest place to get to.
Exactly,
You know what I'm saying?
but my point is that you could purchase, there are housing units in those areas that I think would fit within this program in the concept of spreading it out. It doesn't have to all be in the Mid-Island or town. And I'd be fine with if you bought one in Nantucket, and I can see some benefit in that. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, there's definitely housing needs out there in the summertime. I get what you're saying. I think there's potential. I just think that there's going to be some questions, and the tax issue is definitely one of them, and the selling is something.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair,
John.
in reference to your tax information at $336 per thousand, if you're looking at the numbers here of post-construction average cost of $661, you're only looking at per unit about $2,200 per year.
Yeah,
So
I
even at that 2, you're looking at $20,000. At 100, you're looking at $200,000. When we're looking at the selectmen sponsoring maybe or supporting 20 million, and you're looking at the FinCom supporting 10 million, those are pennies on the dollar. I don't even think that is really a concern. We're for the greater good. I get what you're saying to keep it on the tax roll, but what we're losing and what we're gaining is a big contrast, and that's all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
is there a possibility you could do your numbers such that they would work if you kept paying the taxes on the properties?
In effect, that is how the numbers are presented.
Well, I mean,
It's,
I'm with Nat on this. You, at town meeting, people, the big thing that I heard right off the bat when they talked about the hotel is we're taking all that off the tax rolls. You know, people don't want to be paying and other people aren't paying.
Even perception,
Well,
the
so the-
perception of it.
but to answer your question, so these properties that Tobias identified paid in taxes, according to the assessor's office, 39,000 and change last year in real estate taxes. In our pro forma, we're assuming, in effect, that they're paying $53,000 in taxes because of the improvements.
Yeah.
So it is built into the number.
Well,
Yeah.
then you need to present that to the town meeting if someone
Yeah.
asks the question.
I mean-
Yes, we will continue to pay the real estate taxes on these properties.
Yeah.
And then
It-
people won't have that objection.
It
That's
may
a great
not even
point.
come up. I'm just talking, it's just general, because there's been a couple of times where someone has said, they think first of all, the Covenant House, a lot of people think it's supposed to be on the Shire list, and it's hard to explain that to people, and it's not. But at the same time, that property, when that primary dwelling stays in that Covenant House, there's no tax loss on that property for the most part. I mean, it may be a few dollars, but it's not, it's still getting, the primary is paying the most still. So it works, it gets us a year-round house, keeps the taxes, and it kind of looks the same. It doesn't really change anything. So this is a lot of potential here, a lot of swallow. This is a debt override, though, isn't it? This is not a. Yeah, it has to be. You have to have the money, or else you can't do it. Okay.
Right. This is also
All right.
money this is people year round who are putting more money back into in the long run, they're probably making more money for the town being here
Yeah.
than what you're losing in taxes.
Yeah. No, I understand it. I'm just
I get
bringing it
yeah.
up as a. You
No,
know,
we really appreciate all your feedback. We
I'm
really
just
do.
saying, it's just, you know, it's a good idea for a lot of, sort of an area that we can't get a hold of with current programs. You know what I mean? So, anyway, okay. You could end up with, well, never mind, that's fine. Okay, so, anyone else have anything here on this? Judith, go ahead.
I just-
Sorry to take up so much time, Judith.
Wanted to say, I really think Matt's initial comment about, this is land that if we don't do stewardship of it, it'll be gone from us to be able to manage into the future. So I look at it as really an investment toward the future. Second thing is, I think rental gets you more bang for the buck than if you were selling these. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is beginning to look at a model out of Martha's Vineyard for having basically long-term leases that might be 99-year leases, that you keep the title of the land in the government, but that you can have an incentive for developers to go ahead and build, do construction there and then rent out those sorts of facilities, or possibly even do something with a different form of ownership. So I just think it's really a question of saving for the long run, and I hope that we'll talk about that and not end up only talking about short-term tax shifts, because I think in the grand scheme of things here, the way the values are appreciating in the property, as others have said, that really is just a small issue in the grand scheme, in my opinion.
One other comment now is,
Sure.
you talked about, could we sell it? And there could, and I'm not saying it would happen with this program, but one idea I had a couple years ago is sort of a hybrid of what these guys are talking about. And I sort of proposed it, and everyone said it would never work, it's not possible. But I said, if you could take the land out of it, and you had two homes, in the front home, you sold as a covenant home for $695, whatever it
Yeah.
is now.
Yeah.
But if you could build those two homes for the price of that $695, you would end up with one unit that would be able to be used as a rental and would be a complete income stream. So if you use that sort of model, you get a covenant home, you put it, if you did it in Fairgrounds or somewhere else, you would get a covenant home, a family would live in it, permanently covenanted, and Housing Nantucket or some other entity would have a rental home where there'd be a straight income stream almost from day one. So I think there is a way to do it. I'm building a couple cottages You know, I'm doing them at a slightly higher level, but I would like to think that I could get it, come in at, you know, 650, 750. All of a sudden, you've got some sort of hybrid, like you're talking about,
Yeah.
where there's some ownership plus some rental. And if you could scatter that around, I think you might have something.
That was what I was thinking, is kind of, I didn't even say that, what Matt said is, how do we model a rental with the covenant program, not the covenant program, but the way that covenant program ends up? You get the primary that's sort of just there, and then you have a rental covenant and a rental tertiary that could go on the shy list. I'm just trying to come up with a way to
Where you put covenants on
make
all
it
property.
the same, because these properties you're looking at, you're going to be looking at ones that are already built.
Right.
I mean, you want to find a place with a primary and secondary already built. That's what you're really looking to do. You're not going to be building houses, that's for sure.
There are a few additional units are part of the program here, and they check out with the types of numbers that Matt was just talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, we got a little bit of like apples, oranges, and bananas like in the bowl, which isn't to say that, you know, I mean, of course, anything is possible, but you know, there's always a trade-off. Like, does it go on the shy or not? Can it be filled by a town employee or not?
Yeah.
Can it be sold and a home ownership or not? And I think it's possible to incorporate all of those things in, but it's going to take. It's not quite as simple as it might. Some people might like.
Not every house will do everything.
No.
That's correct. Exactly.
Different houses are gonna tick off different boxes.
Mr. Chairman, may I just
No,
make,
go ahead, Brooke.
make a remark? I've been working on affordable housing for a couple of, this is a personal remark, Brooke Moore, individual. I've been working on this and delving into it for the last couple of years. And the thing that I came to realize is that, and I've kind of been joking with myself and other people of late, that the best affordable housing solution is the one that's not currently on the table. Because we get caught up with, well, we could do this and we could do that, but this one doesn't do that, or it doesn't do home ownership, or it doesn't do covenant, or it doesn't do this price point. And I think that what we have to remember is we have to take a direction, we have to go with it, and we have to commit. Because I think that the problem in this community has been a lack of commitment in a direction. And I think that this article has a fair amount of flexibility built into it that will allow us to craft a program. And the other point I want to make is that we are engaged with the Nantucket Data Platform. They're doing a deep dive research into what exists in housing supply and what exists in housing demand. And so we're going to have data come summertime when we're formulating this program and fleshing it out and implementing it. It's not all going to happen in July. We're going to have experts and expertise coming in to help, but we're going to have data about what is out there and what is needed. And that is really important to me, that we're going to be doing data-driven decision-making. And the other thing I think that we have to remember is we have this shy list thing hanging over our heads. And the most expeditious way to get there is, and most cost-effective way to get there, is to do rentals so that they can be priced at different levels, make the program more financially viable with having some market rate and middle rate pricing, and get to the shy list, and then we can breathe. And then we can breathe and we can plan and we can figure out what we need as a community going forward for the long term. And that's what I'd like to achieve personally through this.
I appreciate it. So, does anyone else have it? Andrew?
No.
It sounded like you were going to reach in for the microphone.
It's in order, can I
Okay.
move this as a matter of planning concern?
Yes. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. I'll accept the motion to support.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Toby.
If you have any other
unanimous.
questions, feel free to email me or
Yeah.
come up with ideas. Feel free. Thank you.
Excellent. What are we doing now?
Mr. Chairman?
Okay, oh, 38, okay.
So 38 to 63, typically, the commission considers these in a group. The planning board has finished its work. The finance committee has basically supported all of the planning board motions. So unless there's individual articles that you want to call out, we typically vote these as one.
Okay,
Move that they're the matter of planning concern.
is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to, whatever the next motion.
Support.
Consider them support.
Consider, yeah.
And
Is that what you want? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
I'm gonna sustain on that second one.
Abstain?
Yeah, abstain, sorry. Abstain.
Abstain as well?
Yeah, no.
Wait, you're supposed
No,
to
it's
say-
just, like I say, when I get into these things, I don't know enough about all the particular ones.
You're staying
Yeah.
on the second motion.
On the second motion. I'll-
Yeah, and Barry seconded that second one.
Yep.
Okay, sewer district.
Articles
expansions.
68 through,
Can you give me just 1 second? please?
Sorry, yeah.
Forget all this.
What's that page?
Articles 68 through 70, this is page 98 through 100 in your packet. These are sewer district expansions. There are 3 of them this year. These all have positive motions from the Finance Committee, which is based on a positive motion from the Sewer Commissioners, which is the Board of Selectmen. The parcels in question, if you're wondering what they are, Article 68 is the barracks at Low Beach, so this is in Sconset. This covers the former Navy property where the police special group is housed.
Yeah.
69 are 3 parcels at Hickory Meadow Lane, which is near where the animal hospital is, a series of wetlands that are part of the, I think it's the North Hummock needs area on the edge of that. And the parcels on Pulpus Road are part of the needs area that are already identified and already planned for. So many of the property owners there are anxious to get in now that the system is operational. Many have offered to pay for those extensions on their own dime, basically. So they can't get in unless they're in the sewer district. And again, these all have positive recommendations.
Okay. So does anyone have any comments?
Thanks for clarifying those.
I'll accept the motion to support.
No, wait, to money concern.
Motion to consider them as planning concerns, sorry. So that's same motion. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Who made the motion?
Barrett. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion to support now?
So moved, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Barry and Judith seconded. Eleanor.
Now, can I go back to the
Yes,
previous one? real quick?
absolutely.
Did we include, Article 52 or 53? Where did we end our last support?
On the zoning?
Zoning was 38 through
38 to
63.
63.
63, okay.
Yeah.
So we accepted the finance committee comment on 53. On the pool.
We did.
Which is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
We did.
I'm just bringing it up, I'm bringing up the full article, just quickly. What the select board was knocked this around quite a bit, and we didn't make a lot of comments on a lot of other things, but we made a comment on this that I want, people to be realized. The select board acknowledges the neighborhood environmental concerns related to swimming pools, and understands the needs to be an interdepartmental review to understand the impact and recommend potential mitigation through zoning and other means. Specifically related to the environmental concerns, town administration is working with the National Department of Public Health, DPW, and Natural Resources to develop policy bylaws and ensure
Yep.
pools are managed in a way to eradicate the negative impact on water quality. We presented at the next town meeting. So I just think, yeah, so I just think, sorry, what?
Thanks.
Yeah. And it's all
No,
right.
I watched that.
Yeah, so I
watched
just,
it.
in case the board didn't see that, or didn't read this in the packet, I just wanted people to realize, you know, I think Fritz's article has good intentions. I think when it got to the planning board level, there were, you know, sort of unintended consequences and a lot of different things that people, you know, have to be worked through. But I do think, you know, if you do any cursory review of, you know, how other places, the impacts of pools that in other waterfront communities, and especially the saltwater pools that people think are, you know, are great, because, oh, it's salt water, how bad can it be? They're the worst because the pollutants from them never go away. So if those are getting pumped into the lowest point of each lot, which I tend to think they are, because I don't see trucks driving around with tank trucks with pool water, bringing it up to the, you know, up to the,
We actually-
up to the wastewater treatment plant. You know, we don't see that, so that's all going right into the harbor. And we've built, I don't know how many hundreds of pools, and, you know, and we continue to have a water quality degradation that we can't quite get our hands on. You know, maybe it's because of that. And so we have to really figure it out. Anyway, that it's one factor, you can't prove it, but it's they found it. Iowa, like when I was laid up with my hips, and I had, you know, ton of time to read for a couple weeks. It was kind of interesting. Out in Iowa, they were having huge trouble because of swimming pools, and who would have thought that it was happening? It's because they have ponds and bodies of water that don't flush, don't change, and these things have just slowly degraded them completely. And so they made some really strict rules out there. It was surprising, and in California, of course.
Chlorine water or the salt water?
Well, the chlorine pool itself, if you let it sit for 10 days or so with sunlight, it will clear itself. It breaks down, and then you can have it tested. This is some places, and then it's water and it's inert and it's fine, and they let that go in. But if you take a saltwater pool, it doesn't break down. It does some sort of process that, and I'm not a chemist, but it does a process that puts up some pretty nasty chemicals to make the chlorine in the salt. So that stuff never breaks down. So when you pour that out, it's in the environment forever. And so they, you know, what they do in certain areas is they make a pool of that type. You know, they make them, you know, pull that water away and put it in the right place. Because when they've studied the estuaries in California, you know, a couple pools, no big deal. A bunch of pools was a huge deal. And so they were digging down into the mud and finding some of the bad stuff in these things, you know, and it didn't go anywhere. It sat there forever. So they're trying, so it's very interesting. And I think we don't know enough now, but, you know, I think our water quality is important enough that it should be a matter of concern that we should be trying to learn as much as we can.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sorry, Ian.
Oh, not at all. I'm on Concom, and this has come up a lot. And Ian Golding, excuse me.
Sorry, Eleanor.
And I just wanted to, when Matt said you know, about how many pools are on the island, my understanding is there's over 800 now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Concom does have, we do condition any pools in our jurisdiction with similar items of, you know, not draining them in our jurisdiction. If the property doesn't have the capacity, then it has to be a condition that would have to be trucked off. And we also have the discontinuing use of chemicals after a certain date. I can't remember which it is. So for evaporation, so that they become more, you know, we're more concerned about flood zone areas a lot of times.
And pools don't get drained
No.
every year, so everybody knows that.
They get lowered a little bit.
A little bit below the scuppers, yeah. So there's,
But they get drained every so many years.
I'm not saying, I didn't say that. I'm
Policing,
just saying,
obviously,
there's
is the
somebody
tough part
said
on them, though.
during this whole thing that they all get drained. That's not true. You go to someone's house, the cover's sitting on the water, and there it is. I mean, I don't, you know, but they do get drained down a little bit for the, whatever, something to do with those scupper things.
Occasionally there's maintenance.
There's a hole or something happens at the bottom, yeah.
Because so it's funny, the pool people will tell you, they never drain, they sit like this forever. And it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
It's not they never drain, and it's not they drain every year, but we don't, you know, we should know how often they get drained, and how often where do they get drained to, and what does that impact?
Yep.
Especially if we're building 800 more, 2,400 more, so. Anyway.
Right, a lot of times the ones we aren't even on our jurisdiction, you get the ones that have storm drains, you know, and they'll dump in the storm drain and end up in the harbor.
That was happening today, I saw.
Yeah, luckily neighbors
Sure.
are our best
Okay,
police on that
so
one.
we already voted. you just talking about this.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's fine, Matt.
wanna change
I'm
the
just,
road.
I'm just making sure that I'm keeping track of what we're doing. So Ian, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very well. How are you?
Good. So you want to talk about your article? And we want to talk
please
about
do.
your article too, so.
Yeah, please. So, so my name's Ian Golding, and the genesis of this article was the tragic death of Stuart Finkelstein past fall. And I had been for years, I've been on BPAC since its inception.
Yep.
And I'm sort of known as the sign guy, as for years I've been saying we really need to change how we treat the bike path. And Matt's coined the phrase nuisance signs for a lot of the stop signs that have been put up either privately or in situations where bicyclists don't really see any reason to stop and therefore don't. And I guess I could say that sort of the issue boils down to almost every bicyclist I've spoken to has had near misses and considers a variety of the paths here pretty unsafe. And I myself end up going out to Colorado several times a year to go biking where I feel safe, which seems sort of highly ironic. And then people who don't bike are sort of puzzled as to why the power bikers go on the main road and why they should have to stop for people on the bike path. So
Yeah.
I was trying to address this issue with the article that I proposed. So, I am proposing a couple of modifications. It was brought up before the select board last week that the issue of the driveways was contentious, both for cost and the amount of signs that it might include. So I'm planning to remove from 5714B driveways.
At town meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I am planning on leaving it in on paragraph A because otherwise the implication would be that there wouldn't be that bicyclists wouldn't have the right of way over driveways.
I think we definitely agree with A. That's been brought up numerous times. I always use the North Pasture Road as the best one that I see.
Right.
You better stop there
Right.
and look to the right.
Right.
But I think also too, Ian, and Tom David, I'm sure you've had chats with about brush. There's a lot of brush getting cut now.
So,
A lot.
Yes.
Which is great.
It is, and Rob McNeil and Jason Bridges and BPAC have all been discussing it. And in fact, Harvey Young and I, in the last few weeks,
Yeah.
have driven around the island and I've got personal notes on every single driveway and every crossing on the bike paths throughout the island, and including sightlines. And
Yeah.
we're planning to put it into a spreadsheet that will be a help going forward on how to deal with these issues.
That's good.
So, but I would like your support, if that's possible, on this article. So I'd like to answer any questions that you might
I just want to
have.
ask Matt a question. I like the way the select board comment is on this article. That's, that was a good sort of analogy of this. For looking at it from a
Right,
police side versus
Right.
realistic side versus
Right.
reality, kind of. You know what I mean?
right.
I just want to ask Mike to comment on the no passing issue. We've had many discussions about that. With Washington Street this year, with the little things they did last summer, I don't know if everybody knows that you're not technically supposed to pass a bicycle on Washington Street now with a car coming.
That I didn't
Right?
know.
Like, that's what that sign means in the little stencils, right?
But that's not-
The
that's a
sharing,
motor
that's
one.
a sharing.
The sharing, but it's
It's to let the drivers know that the bicycle actually has.
the right
rights
to
to
be
the road right.
in the road,
Right.
regardless of whether they're close to the curb or not. in that particular road.
Correct.
Yeah.
And to follow it and share that travel lane until there's an opportunity to pass if there
Yeah.
happens to be one, but.
Because I've always had this like unwritten
minimum
rule,
accommodation.
we shouldn't pass a bike until you get past marine lumber.
Right.
For what reason? You're stopping before the bike is passing you every time. But-
You've got common sense now.
I know.
That's.
Yeah. At least I think I do.
No, you do, and that is, you do.
He won't give you a carte blanche.
Too much credit.
On that one, you do.
He gives me more than that.
No, but I'll give you more credit than that. But at the same time, the bikes have a right on every road.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's forgotten. If you're a biker and you decide, I'm not gonna go back and forth, I'm coming off of Opus, and I'm not gonna go back and forth to the bike path and come back over, that all people do is yell and scream at you.
Yeah.
And it's not off island screaming, it's all the islanders.
It is the Islanders, I
They're the
know.
ones yelling and running off the road.
Yeah.
And it's because I've done it enough.
Yeah.
And so I think what we have to do is change, the culture has to change. You know, people have to realize that, you know, the bike paths are a traveled way. And that you know, bikes and walkers and everyone else have a right in all these areas. And I just think that, so this is in my mind, this is one of the most, it's probably the most important article on town meeting. This is something we should have dealt with 20 years ago. And unfortunately, we haven't, and there's been some really serious accidents, way more than just, you know, what happened last summer. So I just think it's, you know, this is a really good step in the right direction.
I mean, you could put mopeds in this. I mean, it's pretty ugly when mopeds get past us. That's why I'm in favor of widening. I mean, and Ian, you've been around a long time, so I have to tell you, you know, in the 90s, we sort of didn't want to widen the road because we thought like more cars or some weird thinking. But we should have, because it makes it safe to pass. And our roads are so narrow. I'm talking about larger roads now. I'm not talking about downtown and smaller roads. I'm talking about Sconset Road, Pulpus Road, Surfside Road, you know, Nantucket Road. And it isn't just bikes. It's mopeds. It's ugly. People pass those things. It's unbelievable. There's a stretch of road on Pulpus. Mike, are we getting rid of passing on that little spot in Pulpus Road too? Remember we talked about this?
Double yellow, at the beginning.
Yeah,
Milestone.
that and the piece by Maurice Gibbs's, which is I still laugh at.
I don't know if it goes that far. I mean, that's all the way up in
Okay.
or something. But
I've been past there 2 times in the last 3 years. There's a stretch that's about 1,000 feet that you can actually pass there. It's unbelievable. It's ridiculous. Because we're getting double lines on Milestone Road up to Bean Hill. Isn't that what they're doing?
They're adding a lot of double yellow lines where there are existing passing zones now.
Yeah, to stop the passing, at least hopefully to Bean Hill. That's what we asked them to do. I don't know if that's what they're doing, but hopefully. Past Russell's Way, right? Do you think? You don't know.
I'm gonna say yes.
I hope so.
Plan in front of me, but it's not the whole stretch of
But-
Milestone, no.
And the other thing too, Ian, that Matt's alluding to is bike, you know, people in their mind, they believe, oh, we got all these bike paths, why aren't the bikes on the bike path? Well, it wasn't long ago, everybody was rollerblading, and now a bike path is a people path. It's walking and bikes.
Right.
I haven't seen a rollerblader on a bike except that one lady. That's about it. There's nobody doing
Right.
it anymore.
Right.
That was a fad, I guess. So, I don't know. So, I mean, does anyone else have anything on this? I mean, we've talked about this before. I think we did. Didn't we talk about this article at our meeting? Is there anything else that you want to sort of change? Have you have any other thoughts, Ian?
Well, I do, but I haven't been able to talk to town council yet, and from what I understand, I think Libby is feeling sort of that in the crush up to town meeting that
Yeah.
I probably won't be able to, so I may approach another lawyer. I've put an exception clause into both A and B, so that in my rough draft it reads at any location at which a multi-use shared path intersects with or is crossed by a public or private way or driveway, with the exception of major intersections to be determined by the town, bicyclists, pedestrians, etc. And I put that in both paragraph A and B. And then I said, for the purposes of paragraphs A and B in section 5714, a major intersection should be considered to be the intersection between a main road, e.g. the Milestone Road, or secondary road that bears as much vehicular traffic as a main road, and a multi-use shared path. Because, I mean, I'm not suggesting for a moment that, you know, the main road yields to bicyclists. What I'm trying to do is reach a point where the nuisance signs are taken down so that bicyclists actually obey the stop signs that are on the bike path in areas where, you know, where there's a traffic and where they need to stop.
Yeah, major ones, yeah.
Yeah. So in other words, where Almanac Pond Road comes down, where, you know, the Barnard Valley Road, where Alter Rock Road, all of which are dirt roads, and which have very little traffic on them. At the moment, the stop signs are for the bike paths, and there are no stop signs for the vehicles coming off the dirt roads. And I just think that's, you know,
It should be the opposite there.
Exactly. So.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, okay.
Move that this is a matter of planning consent.
Yep. Is there a second? All those in favor?
First, second?
Yeah, Bert seconded.
I got
Oh,
I got
It
second.
was Bert's night, though.
Aye.
all those in favor?
Aye.
And you want to make a motion to support?
So moved, sir.
Second. Second, Andy? Andy, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, Eleanor. Yeah, Ian, this is.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate this is, we've come a long way. We had 3 bike paths not long ago.
Right.
3,
Right.
okay?
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough
Yeah.
to get this stuff done.
Yeah.
You know about Walnut Road's gonna get one.
It's wonderful.
You
It's
must be, I'm
really
like
great
doing
news.
cartwheels over this. I can't even believe it. That's the most dangerous road to ride a bike. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe the second most is Quidnet and New Lane, maybe third. It's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
So, thank you
Oh,
very,
thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah.
And the amount of work that he and Harvey Young and Jason and a couple other people have done is amazing.
Yeah.
It really is.
I'm so glad we
Thank you.
got this BPAC thing up and running. That was a really great thing. Huge. Okay, the stretch code, and we have Andy Vicino here in the audience is gonna kind of help us a little bit with some of this stuff.
Page 104, Mr. Chairman, is
Yep.
where the FinCom recommendation, this does have a positive recommendation.
Yeah,
And Lauren Sinatra in our office, you know, did ask that this be put before the commission for your consideration.
yep, yep. Oh, look at that recommendation. It's long. Okay. Andy, I mean, some of us understand some of this stuff. Some of us understand parts of it. Basically, what we have is the new building code and getting everything to pass and having little problems with certain things, and how the stretch code sort of gets us sort of a bouillabaisse of things to make a score, HERS rating, right?
Right.
Okay, now you can talk. I
Okay.
just wanted to sort of, hopefully
So-
I'm right about that.
You got it right. So presently we can build in 2 fashions. One's to comply with the building code, which is prescriptive. Whatever's in the building code, you can build to those specifications. The stretch code takes it a step further and insists or mandates or requires that a HERS rater, which is my professional designation, kind of follows that project from permitting through completion. Under the prescriptive path, the present code, there are already some testing that's incorporated into that that a HERS rater accomplishes. That's the blower door test.
Yep.
Under the present energy code, it's required. Duct testing, if it's outside of the building envelope, is also required. And then makeup or mechanical air is also required to be tested so that we know that health and safety is being satisfied under the building code. So under the stretch code, it's all those things and the modeling of the house to show its future energy use. So in the process of modeling the home, now you can start to trade off within the components of the house, appliances, insulation, windows and doors, You can trade off those things so that you can maintain a certain level or energy capacity for the building. And that's what the HERS modeling does. It analyzes the house, uses all those components and puts it in an algorithm,
Yep.
and spits out at the end of that process a rating that tells us that the house is being built to a certain level. So that's what the stretch code is designed to do. It's designed to, I guess, insist that a municipality builds to that specification. Using a HERS rating as the baseline for the construction process. That's the short of it. That's as complex as it is. There's added costs, so there is a cost associated with a HERS rating, but there's also a consideration that you're building a house that's between 10 and 15% more energy efficient. So if you look at the long-term value of that, certainly may offset that cost. But without that consideration, there are also incentives through the state, through the Mass Save program, that more than or at minimum equal to the added cost of the HERS rating.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's right.
So there's incentives, there's long-term.
It kind of balances out between that and the cost to pay you to do this.
That's true.
Yeah.
There's no specific metric. There's no long-term study, and I searched for it to respond to this concern. But there's no specific numbers that say yes, it's a wash. There's nothing that says that in evidence. But there's thousands of these tests being done or ratings being done across the state that insist otherwise. So there's a lot of evidence in a positive way.
Anybody? I don't want to take over talk more about this, but it is really, it's the education part is what I want to touch on in a second. Andy's been in houses for years. I've been under houses for years, and seeing the petri dishes out there. I was at one the other day that was, the spiders were pretty big. And we make spiders in houses and mold sort of because we don't understand the building envelope.
That's right.
And this is why I love this, because when Matt talked about the houses in the 70s and the 80s, you knew what we were talking about.
That's right.
The Petri dish houses. And the ones before that, they didn't have all this insulation in the ceiling with the vents open, rotting your crawl space, making the gross, nasty, horrifying mess that happens when everybody's living up above it, not knowing that this is happening, with dehumidifiers on, with outside air coming in the house. And what's happened with the code changing a little at a time since basically the early 80s, when the second energy crunch happened, we still didn't understand about this breathing thing. We actually don't want a house to breathe, but we thought we did. We just didn't understand what it was doing. Well, it's wet air. So you just open your windows in the winter. So this is sort of getting the true envelope understood in houses without it being a punishment to the property owner, a punishment to the builder, chasing what one guy says you got to do, and another guy says you don't have to do, and you end up doing all this extra work that you don't need just to get a CO or just to get something signed off. And now it can be more streamlined where, no, this is what you need to do to make your house energy efficient, but not just that, not rot out in a lot of places. So this is important that we do this as a community to make it easier for to understand the proper way to insulate.
It builds better houses in the long term. And it does apply only to new construction. So those old houses, I'll make more money diagnosing them and trying to figure out how they're going wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a huge marketplace. There's only a few hundred houses on island that even qualify under the stretch program.
Yeah, right now, yeah.
And of the
Might be a few more than that.
Of the 210 that were built last year, over 60% of them already had a HERS rater attached to it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about under 100 houses that it would impact, in the coming permitting season.
Yeah.
And so it's not a big stock. Sure,
So
there
can
is.
you and Tom do this?
There's a few of us. Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Okay.
It's not, it's not a huge market, but there's 4 people that can do it.
Yeah.
I've got support. There's plenty to go around, and I think there's plenty of people that can handle it, for sure.
This isn't gonna turn into weed, right? And we're all like over the place.
Can only go
Okay, we don't have enough people to do this?
No, we've got plenty.
Okay.
We've got plenty of support.
Move this is a matter of planning concern.
Judith, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Move to give it a favorable recommendation.
absolutely.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Andy, good luck with you. I didn't know you were doing this
I am.
until tonight. I got a text. That's good. This is
Yep.
great.
Here we go.
You
Thanks.
definitely know what you're talking about with this stuff.
Thanks for everyone's time.
Okay.
Thank you.
The incentives, Nat's right, the incentives are great, but that's, you get back.
You
the
get
same
back
amount
what
of
you
money,
spend.
Or even more money.
Yeah.
Depending.
It's, and your box of light bulbs.
I didn't have to do it, but when we redid the bake shop building, we did a pretty good job of insulating it. Kept the old windows, put on, new wooden, storms, and then insulated it really well, but still met the, National Park Service, standards for historic renovation.
Yeah.
So we still did both things, and that whole building is, in the winter, it's $250 a month for electrical bills.
Yep.
And that's for hot water, air, heat, everything. In the summer, it's less.
Yeah.
And that's a fairly good sized building. So it is possible to do it and do it, for historic buildings as well over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it comes with some challenges, but it's all doable.
Yeah.
The science is there, the technology's there, and the manpower is here on the island. We can build some really impressive houses. So
One of the insulated people on the island lives at my house, my rental, and you may know about this. I know you know all about cellulose, but there's a new way. It hasn't been adopted yet in Mass to put foam in a wall of an existing home.
okay.
They
Oh, I'm sure
push.
there is.
I don't know how they do it, but it's sort of like
Sure there is.
they have some sort of way to poke holes in your sheetrock and fill up your wall, and then you can fill the sheetrock back in, obviously. Instead of doing that
Cellulose?
cellulose way.
Well, I've done a couple thousand bags of cellulose, and after this meeting, I'll start talking you out of using foams.
Yeah.
That's our
I
next
have to
discussion.
The
admit,
wall
I-
should be cellulose.
I would tend to think that we don't see the whole picture yet in insulation and the air quality question, and I tend to agree with you in the cellulose and foam.
Not to
When
take
you
the
start
committee's
looking at
time.
our values, it's actually like
It's the same.
you're
It's the
right.
same.
Cellulose
It's
is-
actually-
no, in a new
yeah.
house, the wall should be cellulose. I know. I
Yes,
understand that.
that's
I'm
true.
not talking about a new
No, I
house.
just think there's so many products quickly coming out. I think we're still trying to figure it all out. I've been doing a ton of reading on foam and.
I just got back from the Northeast Sustainable Energy Association conference up in Boston for last week for a few days, and what's happening in the state is really cutting edge. It's exceptional what's
Yeah.
happening here. We're keeping pace with Germany, keeping pace with California. We're the best in the nation. So our government programs are really first rate. The Mass Save program, it's unmatched. So I appreciate the board supporting this. I think that the next couple of years are going to be some really nice changes for the community. So thanks.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, Judas article. Where is it now?
Article 75
Where are we here?
on page 105 through 107.
Yep.
This article has a Finance Committee motion to take no action, but they are recommending that it's referred to the Select Board for professional assistance to explore the proposal and make recommendations.
So, Mr. Chair, should I go stand over to Mike? So I
Sure.
can
Whatever you
step
want to
there?
do. You don't have to, Judas.
Well,
I mean,
Oh, we'll have a quorum, maybe Bert can stay for one.
can you stay for a minute?
I just gotta get my son to help me load my truck, and I'm on the 6:30 boat tomorrow.
Oh.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Okay. Oh,
Just,
we-
you can't vote on this one, we need.
Right, so that's why I'm just stepping out here. You could step in if you want, or we could do-si-do, okay? Well, you may, those on the planning board will remember, I put this article, and it's a citizen article back in November before we knew the Airbnb tax would pass,
Right,
and
right.
thought that it would be sufficiently complicated that it'd be better to have a working group try to figure that out. Now we have the Airbnb tax, so I think the difference in my proposal here is this goes to all rentals, not just short-term rentals, and it doesn't involve a tax. The idea is to require people to register their rentals in order to have them be inspected to deal with possible safety and health issues. So I'm fine with, and appreciate the select board suggestion for the select board to authorize that a consultant be brought in, because I'm sure it will involve dovetailing with the state's database system. But I hope, and I guess I'm speaking to you, Matt, that select board will follow up on this, because I've talked to Tucker, I've talked to Roberto Santa Maria. I think there really are safety issues for places that may have not been inspected, that have been converted kind of on the side, that aren't compliant with various code requirements. So I think it really makes sense not to just focus on probably the newest and spiffiest units, but to try to be sure that everybody, this would apply to year-round rentals, that under those circumstances, there'd be an adequate review. This is the kind of thing typically college towns do. I looked at the Amherst provisions that were, they went into detail about how they were going to implement it, but I set this up as a discussion effort for a work group. So that's why it's there. I don't know what you think. We talked about it briefly in the planning board. People thought that, I think at that point, that it wasn't a planning article. But I guess you could find tonight that it is planning significance or something like that if you want. But that's the backdrop. Any more you'd add, Andrew? I'll just stay away so you can vote.
No, I mean, go
I
ahead.
think our staff recommendation is, yes, it is a planning concern, and we do support the FinCom recommendation for further
Study.
further study with it. I think that the Board of Health will end up being the lead on this, and there will be certainly coordination that comes back through the Plus Department and others. So I think it's a worthwhile effort, and I support it moving forward in some manner. I just don't think it's ready to actually adopt quite yet.
I agree. I think there would be a lot of questions at town meeting about how many people the town have to hire, how many, it's like, I think Andrew's right about the Board of Health, for sure.
Richard Ray talked about
But
something similar.
I know, I remember him talking about something about
Yeah,
this a
he
while
did.
ago.
Yeah.
But,
The point of trying to suggest initially that there be a joint work group is that I really thought it would be important, not to say it has to be today, but for the town, the public to vote, to say we're going to go ahead and buy into this. And it may be that would be a year from now, or maybe that's not even necessary if it's an administrative effort that can be handled under existing Board of Health. But talking to some realtors about it, they would have a perspective. I'm sure that others would have a perspective. So I'm happy with the upshot here. I just wanted to give you the background for anybody who hadn't heard it.
okay. So
I
you want,
move this is a planning concern.
yeah, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Anyone want to make a motion to
Andy,
support?
second that, or John?
Andy
second.
did.
Andy did.
Yeah.
I move to accept the recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark me as abstain, please, Elder.
And places like Amherst do it because of the parties and
Yeah.
parking with the kids, and they were having trouble, they didn't know who to contact. There'd be a huge party with 1,000 cars everywhere, and they'd try to get hold of the owner and they couldn't. So, and we have, it's kind of, we're a hybrid, we kind of have that similar issue in a few areas. So it's, I'm not sure, we'd have to really work on what would be the right way to do it, if you even did it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you're gonna get the people that don't want, why should somebody
They
come
don't
on my
want to know they're
property? How
renting.
much is it gonna cost? That kind of thing,
So,
Mr. Chairman, too, it's worth noting that, administratively now we have a problem properties group that is a
Oh.
coordinated effort between really the town and the plus departments where there's, blatant ongoing problems.
That's good. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been, the town manager implemented that about a year ago, I think.
Cool.
So it's,
There's a
Big-
handful that you get continued complaints about.
Yeah.
right, or where there were, serious life and safety issues, the carbon monoxide, I think, if you remember that, and some of the properties that are, again, become life and safety type issues, so.
Okay.
Okay,
So this is the resubmission, right? For this article?
these articles, so Articles 79 and 80
Yeah.
have been before you before the town meeting before. They both have continued positive recommendations from the
Yeah.
FinCom. I think they're pretty clearly of planning concern, and I would hope there's continued support on behalf of the commission for
Now,
this.
Andrew, what's 80? Is 80 the other covenant that we're doing now with the other, with the
It's,
deed restriction
it's a
one?
continuation of that and again, our representatives have recommended that it be resubmitted.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
we're doing a two-pronged approach here. We're
but it's
amending
okay to
bylaws.
do that?
Of
It's not a
course.
problem? Okay,
Yes.
good. Okay, just making sure because it would be better to get that passed, to be honest. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so does everyone know what these are? This is the 0.5% over 2 million one? And then the other one is the family,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So can we take them both together and accept the motion to support?
I'd make a
I mean, a
motion
motion to
to
the planning concern.
mark them of planning concern for both
Second.
articles.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then,
Same process
Yeah.
to support for both
Yeah.
articles,
is there a
please.
second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Andrew, is there anything else
This one.
at all? Mike, how you doing over there? Sorry about all this. Is Derek, is he here?
I think he must have given up on us a while ago.
No, the line's
Derek, are you still here?
I'm here.
line's still active.
He's gone out for takeout, Chick-fil-A, he's back in his house.
Delivery.
Chick-fil-A.
All right. Derek, we appreciate you here, and we appreciate the state helping us with Sconset Road. Oh, Milestone Road, sorry. Us locals call it Sconset Road. And hopefully we can get this to get approved for the improvements to the existing rotary. Hopefully.
Yeah, we'll follow up with Mike as funding becomes available and when we get a clear picture with how funds are programmed across the state.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you very much for being with us tonight.
No problem.
All right, so anyone else have anything before we adjourn?
Will we talk about Amelia Drive next time?
Oh, did you go to the,
I did.
I didn't go to
That's
that.
good.
Oh,
It's in the
It's in
back.
the packet.
oh,
Yep.
are we gonna talk about that? Sorry.
We don't have to, we can do that.
We can do that. Fine, I don't care. I've lost my cover sheet now. Did you go to Rob's thing? I know Mike did. I didn't go. I'm going this Thursday to the
It's,
Main Street one, but
it's
I couldn't
worthwhile
go.
going to.
I know it is. No, I know. I couldn't go.
That's okay, I was out, it was really well done.
He brought up, I think he got all the hornets nests moving over there because there was a lot of people showed up, I heard. Mike, what do you think what's your thought? I mean, we've talked about this forever. I mean, one year we want to go slower, the next year we want to go faster. I mean, do we want to leave it the way it is? Should we go one way for 1 year?
No, I don't think we're making a recommendation at all. But,
Yeah.
You know, it was definitely a very well attended meeting. I think it
Showed
was
all the
somewhat
options.
Split about the two-way, one-way option and the parking, whether it should be on street or not. And you know, obviously we're going to have a need for a follow-up meeting with a more refined set of options to narrow it down to just 2 or 3.
Talk about the grass strips. Did that come up? The grass strips come up?
A number of different scenarios brought up. I mean, it's all in
Yeah.
the presentation there. It's
Yeah.
12
Okay.
different options that you can,
Right.
that are up for consideration. That definitely has to be whittled down to realistic options that are implementable, and just make it very simple, because ultimately the select board's got to approve this, and I'm sure they don't want a 3-hour review of dozens and dozens of scenarios. They want just a couple of just options to look at. So that's going to be the effort between now and when that's
Taking away off-street parking is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to implement off-street, on-street, now we're gonna take it away, that's crazy. We just have to, I mean, we have to really decide as, you know, people that live there, obviously, they're really the neighbors, not so much living on the street. But that right now works just like Westchester Street. It's the same thing. You drive, you have to pull over. It's just constantly, it's exactly the same. It's just a newer one. In my opinion, I thought we should, when we were doing the market approval, Barry, you remember that?
Yes, I do.
We thought about, well, should we try one way for 1 year going in towards Tacoma? And at the time, we didn't take the road yet, so we hadn't really gotten serious about it. And I don't think Waite Drive was fully, you know, discussed at the time as far as, and Matt's idea about having one direction, one way, one the other is interesting. That's a new idea too that didn't come up then. So, I mean, the other issue is cost. I mean, moving all that curbing isn't free. Then the trees, and there's less trees towards after the dental office place, right?
Sure.
So, did that all got talked about?
Yes, and again, this is all the materials there, and
Yeah.
of all those different scenarios, and that's just in the packet for informational purposes. The follow-up meeting is definitely going to be the one where what's critical and what's not.
So he's gonna make another schedule, Rob is, to do this again?
Yeah, well, we still have to coordinate with the consultant beta group. So we still have to have a conversation to what are we presenting to the public, what do we hear, and what are we going to refine this down to? And that's what's going to be done between now and the next public presentation, which honestly hasn't been scheduled yet,
Okay.
but it should happen
That's
probably
good.
in May or something like this.
But it was good though, because
Yeah.
we talked about things like the trees, for instance, where most of them are not in the best shape in the world.
Yeah.
So this may be an opportunity to look at revegetating the area in an appropriate way. I mean, the other thing that's surfaced up as well too, and I think Michael can concur with this,
Easy.
it was really important for people that were there to talk about the pedestrian way as well as how to integrate bikes into the system as
Yeah.
well too. So the only thing is as you begin to take all of those things into account, needless to say, you're increasing your roadway structure altogether, and so there's going to lie some of the challenges behind it, but nothing was irresolvable either, which was kind of nice. I think Andrew's got
Yeah,
something
Mr.
to
Chairman.
too.
You know, I think it's important to remember that there's a lot of deferred maintenance on this roadway. There was no formal homeowners
Right, not then.
set up.
Yeah.
So a lot of the trees were damaged. Some of them were damaged by the low branches and the trees, the trucks hitting the trees. So I know Rob has, I'm concerned about the trees. We don't have a lot of streets with a fully grown canopy, and in the center of that street, it's very well established, and the trees look pretty darn healthy to me. I mean, I think where branches are smashed off, obviously you have the possibility that they will get, So Rob has already issued work orders to deal with that, deal with the branches because they are ours now. There's been deferred maintenance, I think, on some of the sidewalks. They're out of compliance. And I think a main point, certainly that I made at that meeting, is it's not all or nothing. We don't have to treat the road as one uniform, application. There's there's places where there are no trees, and some of the property owners were, quite open about saying, you could move the sidewalk onto our property.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. That-
Which was great again.
And
Yep.
what's the layout, 40?
It's 40, and
So
then
they
there
were willing to give easements, or
There-
just
there's
licenses, or?
two 10-foot utility easements that run on
Oh,
each side
perfect.
parallel.
Perfect.
And some of the property owners at least indicated they would be fine because they don't have
Nothing there anyway.
anything there
Yeah.
to move the sidewalk up into that 10-foot utility easement. Now, other property owners actually had patios and other things that they can't do that. So
Well, the restaurant does, kind of.
they have it, and
Yeah.
some other places have some parking. So again, I think there's going to be a more fine-grained sort of examination of that to look, where there might be opportunities. But I think some of the things on those, it's all or nothing, just, all parking, all lanes. And I think it's going to be, hopefully, I don't think it's going to be that type of recommendation.
Yeah.
So,
28 feet. One parking on one side. That's it. That's what it really, should have been originally. Unfortunately, it wasn't, so.
And the one I like is either one way, north or south. 'Cause you don't have to take anything.
You can leave it alone. Oh,
All the
yeah.
trees stay, you don't have to
Yeah.
take anything in, you get a bike lane.
I
And that's
kind of
the-
agree with that, just knowing that the
And we
width
don't-
of it, you can almost have a car parked right now, and if somebody goes really slowly, you can pass. So without the additional expense to take over property, to add more, we haven't developed lane or Wait Drive yet.
Wait Drive, yeah.
So if there was a potential to put in a one-way, now would be a good time to try and do that, to incorporate into the construction of the next lane. Because once we commit to two ways, I have a feeling Wait Lane might be two ways or one way, or,
Could also do something like, Mike, I don't know if this is in there because I lost that paper. I'll be shuffling through here trying to find it. Do one way from, say, the bank, the first two properties, or something like that.
well, you're,
What do you think of that
you're
idea?
reading my brain.
I am?
Because that's exactly what I was thinking.
Like-
However, if you get in that, I think it's going to cause confusion with people making a U-turn. If it was either going up there, one way, where do I enter? Where do
Yeah.
I get out? They'll be going in. Next thing you know, the banks and the meat market will be complaining because people are making U-turns in the
Yeah,
driveways.
no, that's true. Yeah. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Well,
it's,
anyway.
it's split on that. There's some that like the one-way and some that don't, and there's impacts to the Tacoma with one-way that we have to be
Yeah,
careful
I
about
know,
as well.
I'm
So
cognizant of that too, yeah. The
I-
cut-through thing.
I don't want to jump to anything
And
too quickly.
And the businesses, some people want it and some don't.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
All right, well, anyone else, anything? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bad for him. You must be like Nantucket again?
It's okay.